What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Flip the M podcast, sponsored once again by our friends at PrizePicks. Just be sure to use that code 5, that's FIVE, to match up to $100 on your first deposit. And this episode today is a very special episode because we are going to be having trivia throughout this podcast. We have 3 different trivia questions going on. So at any point, we'll go ahead and we'll list out the trivia questions. And when we post it, if you comment down below the correct answers, you have a chance to win $30 in PrizePicks funds. I think that sounds like a good deal. It's an easy way to win money. But
you gotta join in.
Let's go ahead and let's start with that the first question for trivia coming from me. So let me go ahead and pull it up and make sure it's all official. Let's get this. So back in 2018, for the AAA team of the Toronto Blue Jays, our resident speedster John Birdie was playing there. What other current Miami Marlin teammate did he play with in AAA in 2018 in Toronto? All right, that's question number 1. The other 2 will be scattered throughout the podcast, so just be sure to listen through. And then at the very end, collect your answers, put them on Twitter, and you have a chance to win $30 in PrizePicks funds. All right, so for starters today, we're going to talk about the baby GOAT, the young phenom Eury Perez, in his time down in Miami. And he has completely exceeded expectations. Kev, where do we even start with this kid?
Yeah, I don't really know. Really at a loss for words in a way, in the best way possible. He's been everything phenomenal in every sense of the word. Better than anyone expected, and literally the baby GOAT. I mean, we've never seen anything like this before. New career high in pitch counts in a game. He hasn't hit that innings mark yet, but I mean, the innings don't seem to be phasing him at all. His last outing against a really good Blue Jays lineup, even though they're a little cold, really good Blue Jays lineup, he looked absolutely dominant. And 1 earned run in his last 27 innings. I mean, what more can you say? I just beyond grateful that I was able to be there for his major league debut, and there's no limit as to what he can reach. He's so good, and I can't wait to see what the rest of his career is going to look like. Because I mean, the dude is 20 years old. For all we know, he might be 6'9" in 2 years. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy. He's so young. He's so good. Just enjoy it while we have him.
Yeah, Eury, as you said, completely exceeded every expectation that we had from him, which is insane to think about when you're talking about somebody who was a number 7 prospect for the major leagues. You look at somebody who's that high up, you're like, all right, this kid's gonna be a stud. And then Eury comes up and he's further than a stud. He's the ace of the staff for the past 8 starts. Yeah. You know, as you said, I saw a tweet earlier. You know, he has the 3rd lowest ERA of I believe anybody in their first 40 innings or something like that is what I saw from Marlins communication, which is so insane to think about, dating all the way back to the early 1900s. You know, that's how phenomenal this start is. It's unheard of. It's unprecedented. And he hasn't shown any fear. You know, 1 run in 27 innings. It's ridiculous. But we're at such an odd position with Eury, because you look at his minor league numbers, and he has never exceeded 78 innings in a single season. Right now, Eury is at 72 innings this season. 6 more innings, and he's reached his limit, you know, in comparative to his prior seasons. So the Marlins are at this really awkward spot where they have this kid come up, and he's absolutely crushing it and absolutely, you know, tearing apart the major leagues, doing more than we can think of. But how much longer can we have him? And can we morally and ethically keep him up and throw out his arm? It's such a weird position. Josean, what's your take on that?
You know, it's a interesting position to be in, right? Because your best starter is your 20-year-old who had never pitched above AA, right? You were coming into the season believing that, you know, Cueto was going to have his experience and be an anchor of the staff. We were never expecting him to be a Cy Young, but to hold it down. And obviously we had the reigning Cy Young. We have the reigning Cy Young on our team. And we all thought that Sandy was going to be that sure thing. So for our 20-year-old pitcher to be our best pitcher, it was something that's unprecedented. So how you manage him, it's tough because the Marlins are dealing with injuries of their own, and when it comes to that pitching rotation, so do you send down your best pitcher? I mean, that's definitely a interesting dilemma. It's hard to say.
Yeah, it's something that it's a problem that's equally great to have and equally terrible to have. It's great to have a problem to where somebody's forcing their way onto the roster, but it's bad to have when it's such a young player who is such little experience in pitching for a long time in a season. So you kind of got to balance how often you use them for the rest of the season, especially with us being in this hunt right now for the postseason, which is, again, something that we didn't expect going into the season. We were looking for a 500 record, and here we are, 9 games over 500. I'm happy with that, but it's something that we didn't expect. So it's a lot of unexpected problems that are good to have, to be like, oh my gosh, it's great that we're in this position of success, and it's great that we're in this position of having such a young stud on our team and a baby goat, but where do you go from here? So Josean gave kind of his thoughts. Kev, what do you think on this? If you were in Kimming and Skip Schumacher's shoes, and you see Eury reaching his innings limit, where do you go from there? It's rough.
Yeah, I don't envy them. I mean, that's a tough position to be in, and either way, either way they make their decision, they're the bad guy, because you send them down and fans are like, "What are you doing?" And then you keep them up, and you got a portion of people that are going to be like, "He's 20 years old. What are you doing? You can't hurt him." So, me personally, throwing myself in that position, you gotta push his limits a little bit. You know what I'm saying? He can't be with a career high of 78 innings his entire life. So I think this is the year that he surpasses 78. I mean, I think that's a no-brainer. You got to push past it. Whether it's get him to 100 and then kind of from there move forward. I think that's what I would do personally. Try and see if he can get to 100. And then when he gets to 100, sending him down to pitch in the minor leagues, that's just wasting innings at this point, because there's no reason for him. He's got nothing left to prove down there. And if he's just going to throw more innings, why not just throw him at the major league level? So I don't know if you shut him down for a little bit. And then, if we're still in this hunt comes late September or early September, and we're fighting for that playoff spot, you bring him back up and it's like, hey, this is our last push. Like, you got 30 more innings in you. Let's see what you got, A lot of people want a 6-man rotation once either Trevor or Johnny Cueto come back, which, that could be another option. I don't really know. I personally would push him, get him to 100. I think shut him down, honestly. Have him throw pens, have him throw some maybe simulated games, live ABs, keep him fresh at least, not just, bullpen, have him face hitters. And then, like I said, if we're still in this thing come September, bring him back up, and it's our last, throw everything on the table. Put all your chips in. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I'm completely with you. It's the hardest thing about the situation is, as Josean was saying, you came to the season having to expect this solid rotation, this healthy rotation, this pitching depth, and here we are. If you had told me before the season started that in the second month of the season, Eury Perez would have been up here, I would have laughed at your face. There's no way that we'd be bringing up our 20-year-old ace at 2 months into the season, unless it's like panic mode. So for us to have done that, there's a lot not going right with our staff. You have Sandy, who's been struggling mightily, and granted, luckily, lately, it has been a majority good outing minus 1 bad inning. So at least there's some progress there. Whether or not it continues to progress forward, who's to say? But then you have, Eddie Cabrera going on the IL. You have Johnny Cueto pitching a singular inning and then going on the IL and hasn't been seen since. Obviously he's rehabbing in Pensacola and Jacksonville right now, but you haven't seen him since. You have Trevor Rogers going on the 60-day IL. All these things going down with the staff, and it's minimizing your options. It's do you let Eury pitch and push himself, or do you start in this situation start having spot starts by Brian Hoeing or Devin Smeltzer or Archie Bradley, who he stretched out in minor leagues, or Chichi Gonzalez or Dan Castano whenever he's back from his injury. It's kind of like, what do you do there? I know right now with Eddie going down, we're kind of having Brian Hoeing stretch out and go 4 or 5 innings and turn it into a bullpen game of some sorts, but it kind of messes with Eury and what our plan is with him. I'm kind of on the same path as you, Kev, to where it's like, get him to a certain point, send him down, keep him active, doing simulated games, doing live bullpens, whatever it needs to do to keep him throwing, and then bring him up for that push. Obviously, that's not going to be a popular opinion throughout fans. It's really going to divide, really going to upset a lot of people, but it's tough because it's probably what's best for him and for the team in the future. But it's all dependent on the health of the staff. We're pushing for that playoff spot, but if nobody else is healthy, you can't really say you're trying to win and then send down Eury Perez, and then, no offense to the players, but have Devin Smeltzer throw every 5 games or have Chichi Gonzalez throw in every 5 games. That's just a slap in the face of the fans.
Yep.
So to add to your point, John, coming into the season, we believed that the rotation was going to be our strong suit. And having to scramble for pieces this early on into the season, we're not even halfway through yet, and we're wondering what's going to happen. So definitely it's a tough situation to be in, to say the least.
I think dependent on, the health of the rotation, I would not put it past Kim Ng and her team to go out and get a rental starter, a 1-year starter, which is, again, you look back, and if we had Pablo, we would have been in this situation. But, trading Pablo, we got Luis Arraez, which luckily is a great transition to our next topic. But before we go to the next topic, we have our trivia question number 2 from Kevin. Kevin, go ahead and hit us with that trivia question, okay?
All righty. So, obviously, Marlins are coming off a series where they just took on the Toronto Blue Jays. Now they're about to jump into a series where they're about to play the Pittsburgh Pirates for 4 games. So my trivia question for all of you is, which 2 active players played for Marlins, the Blue Jays, and the Pirates? 2 players active in Major League Baseball right now played for all 3 teams. Who are they?
That is question number 2. It's
Tough
a tough
one.
question. It's a tough question. One of them is a deep cut, so just be ready for that. But moving forward to our next topic, we have Luis Arraez, who is not a problem, but a wonderful addition to the team and wonderful necessary addition to the team, who is currently batting in the high 390s, nearing the 400 mark, which will be one of the highest batting averages in a long time. I don't know off the top of my head what Tony Gwynn's record was, but he's nearing there, and he might hit it, which is ridiculous to say. Right now, our Luis Arraez is on pace for a 245 hit season. That is unheard of in this day and age in baseball. You look at him; he gets on base, he walks more than he strikes out. He plays pretty good defense, not great, not bad, right in the middle, pretty good defense. But we knew that we were getting a pure hitter coming to the Marlins. We didn't expect this level of pure hitter. Josean, are you kind of surprised by this revelation from him?
Surprised? I wouldn't say surprised because, since the moment he got to the big leagues, all he's done is hit. But I am taken, I guess, a little aback at the fact we're halfway through the season and he's still hitting 400, basically. It's this day and age where power is valued so much. The long swing is preferred over a contact hitter. To see Luis Arraez have that old school mentality where I'm just gonna get wood on the ball and spray it to all fields. I'll take my hit, give my team a chance. It's refreshing to see, especially on your team. It's crazy when you know how hard it is to hit 400 at any level, and he's doing it in the major leagues. It's absurd.
Yeah, his highest at any level prior to this was back in 2019 when he combined in AA and AAA at back in 2016 at low A, he was batting 347. That's his highest he's ever hit. And here he is, a third of the way through the season, and he's batting 390 something. That's ridiculous. One thing of note, and it's something that you kind of expect the opposite, but Luis Arraez last year with the Minnesota Twins, who were a fantastic team in every facet of the game, he only had 49 RBIs. Even when he's batting 316 and was the hits champion of that league, only 49 RBIs. Now you look at this year when he's on the Marlins, who are not known for being a hitters team, and he has 35 RBIs already in 68 games and half the amount of games. He's on pace right now to hit 83 RBIs, which would nearly double his previous career high of 49, which was set last year. I'm not used to having somebody improve their offense coming to Miami, especially their run production. It's wonderful to add to the team. It seems like every time that there's a clutch hit or clutch game, Luis Arraez is found right in the middle of it, which is awesome and a much needed, solid bat in the offense, like a fixture in the offense. The Marlins haven't had anybody close to this in a long time. Kev, what's kind of your take on Luis's production in Miami?
It's been unreal. I mean, everyone's saying it, even the mainstream media, everybody. When's the last time we saw a guy hit close to 400 this far into a season? You know what I'm saying? It's unheard of, and kind of like what I said with Eury. What more can you say besides it's been phenomenal? It's crazy. And, everyone wants to know, is he going to hit 400 come season's end? It's hard to say yes because, Ted Williams is the last guy who did it in, 1940-something? So who knows? But I will say it looks really, really, really sustainable, which is crazy to say for a guy hitting near 400. But, yeah, his production's been awesome. The RBIs are definitely a little bit of a shocker, especially because he's been, I think, a majority of his games he's been hitting the leadoff spot. So it's not like he's, in the meat of the order driving in runs. He's in the top of the order. And, we have Gene Segura and Jacob Stallings at the back of our order who are hitting below 200, and then Garrett Hampson usually rounding out the lineup. So it's kind of shocking to see the RBIs where they're at, considering that once you get through the order at least once, you got those three guys most of the time kind of rounding it out. It's like, well, guys are still getting into position for him to drive them in. And, it's like every single time there's a guy on base, he does it. It's like you never have a doubt if there's a guy in scoring position. It's like, yeah, that run's coming in if Luis Arraez is coming up. It's been awesome, and so fun to watch.
Yeah, I credit the high RBI numbers just to the fact he's hitting so much. You bring down the 400 to 300. Maybe he has, instead of 40, he has maybe 29, 25-ish. So the fact he's getting so many hits is definitely allowing him to bring some more runs in for sure.
Absolutely. Especially with 2 homers. It's like, well, he's not driving himself in. So it's like he has all these RBIs and 2 bombs. So, hey.
I do want to point out real quick, he has 24 games batting leadoff and 34 batting in third.
Oh,
in his 24 games batting first, he is hitting an absurd 448 with a 1027 OPS from the leadoff spot.
Jeez.
What more can you ask for a player than to have him get on base half the time when he leads off? That is what you need at a leadoff guy. It's insane.
Absolutely. Wow.
Man.
Could you imagine him if he had a little bit of speed? Oh, my God, man.
It's still early. Sorry, John. It's still early.
Go.
But the MVP race is shaping up to be crazy.
Oh, yeah.
Arraez, Acuna, what he's doing, Corbin Carroll. We're having 3 unique seasons, and it's like, what? The rule changes, man. I guess they're working.
It's awesome.
Hey, I'll take it. I'll take what I can get. If the rule changes mean that we're gonna have a player hit 400 for the Marlins, I will take that any day. What other rules do you want to change, Manfred? Let's talk. Let's talk.
Yeah.
All right. Before we move to our next topic, Josean has our third and final trivia question of the podcast. Josean, go ahead and let us hear that question you got for us.
Of course. So as Kevin mentioned earlier, we're about to open up a series with the Pirates. So I wanted to touch base on a little bit of Pirates and Marlins history. So last season, when the Marlins played the Pirates, they were in the middle of a scoreless inning streak. My question is, how many innings were they scoreless in, and who was the person that broke the drought?
Good question. Good, tough question.
Fun fact.
All right.
I was at that game in Pittsburgh.
Wow.
There we go. That's a little hint from Kev right there. A little hint to help you out. So our third and final topic of the day is we're looking at the current roster construction of the Marlins. Obviously, we touched on a little bit with the Eury Perez situation to see kind of what to do there. But there's a lot of injuries that are kind of coming to a close right now with the Marlins, and you don't really know what to do with them. You have Jazz Chisholm, who just started his rehab in AAA. Should be back by next week. Fill up that center field spot. You have Gene Segura, who is on the IL. Personally, I think it's going to be a while, but I know that Skip Schumacher said that he's expected to be a short minimum stay for Gene Segura. We'll see how that goes. You have Avisail Garcia, which is a bit of a confusing case because I know that he was rehabbing out in Pensacola, I believe. And then all of a sudden you see him back in the dugout in Miami, and there's not really been an update since. He's run a couple times, but that's about all you see. So I don't really know what's going on over there. Then you have Johnny Cueto, who just reached his AAA part of his rehab. You got the question that a lot of fans are asking: do the Marlins keep him? Do they bring him up to the majors? Do they release him outright? Ooh, a lot to think about there. And then you have Trevor Rogers, who is still a little bit away from coming back. So a lot of different moving pieces on the Marlins for a team that is very much in the groove of things right now. You have Jazz Chisholm come back. Who are you going to send down? Jacob Maya? Are you going to send down Jonathan Davis after you just traded Brady Allen for him? Are you going to send down Garrett Hampson? I don't know what's going to happen there. When Segura comes back, you have to imagine that it's going to be either a Hampson or a Maya, subtraction from the team. But then when you have Johnny Cueto come back, as I mentioned, a lot of people are calling for the Marlins to just outright release him after signing an $8 million contract and only pitching one inning for the Marlins this year. Personally, on my own accord and own opinion, I wholeheartedly disagree with that. His rehab has been less than stellar, not the results you're looking for coming through, and just not a lot of good reports coming out about him lately, which is really not good for a team that is in need of starting pitching. But when you're in the spot that you're at, where you just need somebody to eat innings, need somebody to come in and pitch, and you sign this guy to an $8 million contract, are you just going to release him after a singular inning and an injury? It doesn't make sense to me. Josean, what are your thoughts on the Marlins roster construction coming up?
I think the person that is most likely to be sent down is Jacob Amaya, just because he was just the most recent to be brought up. But like you mentioned, right after him is Garrett Hampson. So definitely those two, I would say, are the favorites to get moved around when Segura and Jazz do come back. As for Cueto, I don't think the Marlins should cut him at all. I mean, what's the point of cutting your losses if he's rehabbing anyway? I mean, you don't do yourself any favors by getting rid of a pitcher that you most likely would need, their services. So I just think they need to be patient with Cueto. If he comes back around the second half, he can give us a late push. Maybe, that can help the Marlins into playoff contention, to stay in playoff contention. As you mentioned, Trevor is still a ways away, so we would deal with that once it gets there. But as for Cueto, I just think they got to write it out with him. Rehab has been up and down, to say the least, but he is a veteran, and he had only pitched one inning. I feel like you invested $8 million into him. It's a one-year deal. If it didn't work out, he walks at the end of the season anyway. So you gain nothing from just cutting him.
Yeah, I completely agree. I don't think that just outright cutting him is doing anything for the team. I think it'd be different if, Eddie was healthy, if Trevor was healthy. Then with, the emergence of Brax, you're at a different situation and a different crossroad. But I think with all the injuries, especially with all the injuries, you can't afford to just outright cut a man after a singular inning in a rehab stint. It just doesn't make sense to me. Kev, are you on the same page as us, or are you contrarian to us today?
No, I agree with you guys. Especially, I think something that's a lot of people aren't taking into consideration also is with Sandy's struggles too. You don't. I can't believe I'm saying this, but you don't know what you're getting with him, and we don't know if there's something wrong with him too. That maybe he has to go on the IL, or I've been saying it on Twitter for a while now. I think they need to shut him down, at least like a physical mental reset. Just like say, hey, take a little bit off, throw some pens. Don't even face hitters. Just throw some pens. Just relax, shut down until the second half starts, and then go from there. But yeah, you can't. You can't. You gave the guy $8 million. You can't just cut him after one inning. We have a 20-year-old who we're going to have to shut down soon. Realistically. So cutting Cueto and then saying, oh, yeah, we're shutting down Eury, your pitching depth, there is no depth at that point. So I think cutting him would be a mistake. Is it going to work out if he comes back healthy? Is he going to pitch good? Well, sorry. I don't know. I don't think anyone knows, but you got to at least give him a shot. And you know what? If you see that he's hurting us more than helping us, then you make a decision later on. But after one inning where it wasn't even really a healthy inning, you can't be cutting him. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense to me at all. For better or for worse, I guess we'll see later on. But right now, when he's healthy, he'll be back. And I think he's much needed, at least numbers wise. We need another guy that can come in and give us innings. That's not Brian Hoeing. Shout out him. He's been great. But,
yeah,
we just need someone that's done this before. And I just think cutting him would be a mistake. For sure.
Yeah, I'm completely with you. Hopefully he comes back. Hopefully he turns into the Cueto that we all know, the Cueto that we love with the energy that we love. His walkout after his signing announcement is one of my favorite things to watch. Brought the energy there. We need that energy to the team, especially in this push right now, going to contention. You want people who bring the energy to the team. So hopefully he comes back. Hopefully he brings that energy. Hopefully he brings some good stats too and some good innings. But we won't know until it happens. So We'll see when he comes back. We'll see how he does. But that is all we have for this podcast today.
Sorry,
what was that?
Bad. I didn't mean to cut you
go
off.
Ahead.
No,
go ahead.
We're also talking about Johnny Cueto, a guy who people forget pitched the 2013 wildcard game with the Reds, is a World Series champion with the Royals. So
he has pedigree.
Yeah, he knows playoff baseball. He knows what it takes to get there. At the very least, if he's not going to start games for you or give you many innings, at least you have that veteran presence and a guy who's been in the playoffs and knows what it takes to get there around a team that looks like they have a chance at getting there, So I think at the very least, that's a very valuable thing that you can add to this roster right now. So,
yeah, I completely agree. I've been on the Cueto train before we signed him. He's always been one of my favorite players. So seeing him struggle is not a great time. Hopefully with his new short hair that he has, that brings some more life and energy to the team.
Hopefully the haircut restarts him a little bit.
I always say the same thing about Sandy's beard. So
yeah, true. Oh, man.
We'll see.
I have faith he'll turn it around. I have faith Sandy will turn it around.
Second half, Sandy's going to be crazy. I'd book it.
Absolutely.
I promise.
Absolutely.
Keep the receipts. Listen to this podcast. Keep it on. But as I said, this is all we have for today's episode on Flip the M podcast. We always appreciate you guys listening out. But as we mentioned with all of our trivia questions, you're going to comment them in the comments on YouTube, on Twitter, wherever you see our podcast, comment them there. And then on Sunday night, after the series finale of the Pirates, Josean and I, and potentially Kevin, if he's available, are going to host a live stream covering the homestand against the Pirates and the Blue Jays. And on that homestand live stream, we will then go ahead and do a drawing for which lucky one of you guys is going to win $30 in Prize Picks funds. It's going to be a great time. Hopefully a great time after the Pirates series. Hopefully we're not down in the dumps. But it's going to be a great time regardless because you guys are going to get $30 somehow. But until next time, guys.